Welcome to the Warrior Gamer Headquarters podcast. It is my distinct honor to introduce this episode's guest.
I've been very dedicated to our veteran and military service member community, and I'm really glad to be able to spend more and more time on that. One suicide changes 135 lives. It is a contagious, and I say the word contagion as it applies to suicide is very real. When somebody says to you, I'm having a problem, or you see somebody who is isolating, if you really want to do something, you need to go up and engage. It takes being a little bit more of a human that I think modern day life has allowed us to be. And so I just want to bring people back to that reality.
I think your choice to use music and art, I've been watching your music videos too. I think that choice opens the doors where otherwise people wouldn't be open.
First of all, it's been proven that the vibrations of music are very healing. Heaven Can Wait, we had another musician do that, and they just throw themselves into this, and it's beautiful, and it makes people cry. And when you can kind of open people's hearts up a little bit, then you can start talking to them about a problem that needs to be healed, and that they need to engage in that process with other people. Just one. Even if you just took a minute and made one person feel better in that minute, that's 1 minute that they have, right? And by the way, you'll hear that I'm not saying commit. I'm leaving that word out because you will never be able to convince me that anybody's 100% committed to suicide. And so, sorry, it kind of chokes me up because I've met a lot of people through all of this that mean a lot to me. And, great stories.
We will we'll go quickly. I'm Ken. I'm co-host of the show. I'm also on the board of directors for the foundation. 25-year military vet, just retired, joined Transcend Company, Regenerative Medicine. Also on the President's AI Council. I'm joining the new administration as well as a lead on biotechnology. April, you want to give a quick overview?
Yeah, super quick. I'm April Welch, AVP for Strategic Initiatives at Illinois Institute of Technology. Been an educator all my life. My mother was a Marine. She joined in 1963, tried 3 times before she got in. So this community is dear to my heart.
Good. So you're a daughter of. I'm a daughter of an Army sergeant in the Korean War.
Oh, fantastic.
So,
Bilal?
Yeah, and then my name is Bilal. I'm from Southern California. Nice and beautiful and sunny out here. 4th year, and I'm a medical student in my final year. I'm applying to psychiatry residency, and I find out next month if I get in.
okay.
So, hoping for the best. Mental health and gaming is my passion. Found a way to combine the two here, Warrior Gamer. Happy to be here, as always.
Good to meet you all. Especially Susie Sunshine there in the middle.
Thank you.
Always has a smile. It's great. All right.
Hi, everybody. I'm Anne Dunsmore. I'm out here in California. I founded an organization 7 years ago called Angel Force USA. It's my real passion. I have an interesting background, but I want to start with the fact that I'm the daughter of a member of the United States Army who fought at Cap Young in Korea. And I spent my life with him and the ups and downs of his post-traumatic stress, which I did not learn about until long after he passed away. And I'm committed to Angel Force USA mission, which is to stop suisilence, which is the avoidance of discussion about suicide in the military. I feel like talking about suicidal ideation or anything leading up to isolation or any of these types of symptoms is the first and most important step to raising awareness and therefore solving the problem. So it's what drives me. We entertain, engage, and educate. And what I mean by that is that we have an amazing group of artists, primarily musicians, that we use to create an event around that will draw people in so that we can take 15 minutes about a very difficult topic and educate them on it and engage them in it. And almost every single time we have done an event, we wind up almost doing what I would refer to as an intervention. So, you know, that's what I've dedicated my life to. Hopefully, it balances out my 50 years of involvement in fundraising and strategies for nonprofits and political campaigns and so forth. So, always through all of that, I've been very dedicated to our veteran and military service member community. And I'm really glad to be able to spend more and more time on that. Duty first.
That's
Brilliant.
incredible, and we appreciate your service to us and the folks who came before us. Your father, we couldn't have done it without them and their sacrifice. And um, you know, there are a lot of people out there who've heard the issue of suicides in the military population, and a lot of folks just don't want to sort of educate themselves on it. They don't want to be aware about it. There's a huge issue with that because they themselves don't understand why anyone would ideate something like that. Would you be in a position to help folks maybe understand a little bit, empathize with what would be happening in a service member's mind, that would be a legitimate pathway?
I'm gonna say this. One suicide changes 135 lives. It is a contagious, and I say the word contagion as it applies to suicide is very real. And we've started seeing things discussed within that context more and more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to speak about my journey with suicide, both with my father. I mean, I was born in 1956. He had returned from Korea, I want to say, in 54. I was never allowed to go to a funeral. I never, Death was always a peripheral kind of shadow experience. I grew up in a very small community. So there was quite a bit of that going on with the older people in our family and friends and so forth. I had a friend die of leukemia at a very young age. Um, and so, and also dad, we had the opportunity to sadly to watch dad go sideways with alcoholism, depression, unexplained frustration and anger, irrational at times, especially through the eyes of a child. Um, all of us in the family are drinkers. It's a very real. I had a friend who was a heroin addict and also then became an alcoholic because in his mind, um, alcohol was not as bad as heroin, and he said it's the worst thing in the world to kick. And so, you know, I've seen my father in a white jacket back in the day when they had them, I think, and restraints. My grandchildren and children have all seen my dad in restraints. He's passed away. Um, I'm going to just say this. One of the most important things that shed light on this was I was at an event for the 72nd anniversary of the Korean War. My dad was stationed in a place called Cap Young. It was the goriest battle of the Korean War, and they looked at me like, how did he survive that emotionally? They knew it was impossible for him to have survived emotionally, and he didn't. And I started digging into it. And I think after watching Ken Burns's documentary on the topic, where you saw the Allied troops, it was not a U.S. war. The Allied troops were um, as traumatized just watching the Chinese come in on clearly a suicide mission, dying on top of each other in piles. Um, and so then in all my work with different veterans groups and different projects and getting closer and closer to the idea of suicide, I started identifying behavior patterns and stuff like that that were dominant in my behavior, which is a fight or flight mentality. It's isolating and just saying, I can't, I need to just not be around people when I'm feeling depressed. I don't need to talk to anybody about it because they won't understand. I'm going to go get drunk. I'm going to, all kinds of things. And the empathy that you have to have in a situation like this is only something that you can really get if you identify your own weaknesses, and embrace them a little bit and take shame out of it, and focus. When somebody says to you, I'm having a problem, or you see somebody who is isolating, if you really want to do something, you need to go up and engage. You need to do the best you can. It's not perfect. I talked to some caregivers of people in suicide prevention programs. Um, they have 20 people who are ideating at the VA, for example, in a suicide community outreach program. They have a shelf life of 2 years. Think about that. They're one in 135 as well. They're experiencing more suicides than most people. And post suicide, they're still helping the families of these veterans. They're worn out, burned out, but they don't want to leave. And they're starting to experience the same kind of helplessness sometimes. I mean, we've been in the middle of a summit, an Angel Force USA Stop Suisilence summit. We'll do 3 to 4 interventions just in that period of time, whether it's offsite and being on the phones with people, and you just have to do it. That's what it's all about. It's like I had a general walk out of a panel because somebody was in touch with him that had been in his command, um, who had another commander who had killed himself. So leadership in the military is that's starting to increase. The 18 to 35 age group. I'm going on and on. I'm a little bit like a fire hydrant on this, and I'm really sorry, but the experience has been such a journey, and I see it in myself. And I think that was the first thing I had to recognize, and I needed to accept it. Understand that I'm probably not at high risk, but it's there, especially as you get older. I'm a 68-year-old woman, been married 3 times. I have children and grandchildren. I don't want to go anywhere, but I'm kind of here by myself, working hard and caring hard and doing everything you need to do. But it all takes a lot of group. It takes all of us talking on this show. It takes being a little bit more of a human that I think modern day life has allowed us to be. And so I just want to bring people back to that reality.
It's fantastic. I'm so thrilled to meet you. I've been watching hours of video. You are amazing. Absolutely amazing.
That much out
Your
there.
confidence, your poise, your ability to just stick it right to tell them exactly what they need to hear to move the needle on things. You are fantastic. And I'm so grateful that you're here with us and so grateful that you're doing the work that you're doing because it's dearly needed. And I think your choice to use music and art, I've been watching your music videos too. I think that choice opens the doors where otherwise people wouldn't be open. And I was wondering how you made that choice to walk that blended path with music and art and events.
I've been around artists my whole life. They have an unbelievable gift, the good ones, to really connect. I mean, first of all, it's been proven that the vibrations of music are very healing. Secondly, the words can transport you. So when I pulled these guys together, a friend of mine was Rod Stewart's music director for 20 years. He's not anymore, but they're very close friends. And he said, we need to do this. He's the one that came up with Suisilence. I kind of walked into the kitchen one day when he was visiting from England, and he had 2 pieces of paper out. One said Sui, SUI, and the other one said Silence. He was playing around with them. He was kind of making a little miniature video. Um, and went on to write some songs. They're on our website. One's called The One That Got Away, which is kind of a double entendre. It's somebody that got away and actually did end up killing themselves, or the one that got away from the little devil on their shoulder saying, just do it. You don't belong here. You have no value. Just kill yourself. Do everybody a favor. Got away from that. And it really is a beautiful song. So listen to that. Heaven Can Wait. We had another musician do that, and they just throw themselves into this, and it's beautiful, and it makes people cry. And when you can kind of open people's hearts up a little bit, then you can start talking to them about a problem that needs to be healed and that they need to engage in that process with other people. Just one, even if you just took a minute and made one person feel better in that minute, that's 1 minute that they have, right? And so, sorry, it kind of chokes me up because I met a lot of people through all of this that mean a lot to me. And great stories like, we did a Veterans Day event. We do a lot on military observance days because I think that's really important for people to see, especially veterans of all conflicts, to see that we have them, hold them in high esteem and value, and that we are going to take that day. There's a Women's Veterans Day. Nobody knew. I mean, I shouldn't laugh, but it was like, okay, it's better that I laugh and go, you're ignorant, because how would they know? But we had a guy who was the pastor, had been picked by a local elected official to deliver the eulogy, small thing, not eulogy, the prayer for the event. And he came up to me and he pulled me aside and he goes, hey, I mentor all these Vietnam War, Hamburger Hill veteran. I mean, you don't get tougher than that. Been thrown in the clink for knocking out his CO, kind of thing. And he was a gunner on a helicopter. And he rolled up his sleeve and he said, this tattoo is a suicide attempt survivor. There's a group of us. And if we're a survivor, we have this tattoo. I said, that's amazing. Do you mentor people in your congregation that are having issues? He goes, oh, all the time. I said, that's awesome. What do they say when you tell them that you're a suicide attempt survivor? And he said, I don't tell them. And I said, okay, well, you've made that decision, but I'm going to tell you something. They're not going to be able to cope. They'll be able to cope a lot better if you tell them you're a suicide attempt survivor. They're going to might do a little better. Here's a hat. Here's a t-shirt. I don't want to tell you what to do, but I really think you need to start telling people. Well, he had stage 4 cancer from Agent Orange, lung cancer. He came to my next event a week later to also deliver the prayer again. And he was wearing the t-shirt, he was wearing the hat, and he told everybody, I've decided not to continue my chemotherapy. I will be passing away within the next month to 2 months. And I'm going to tell everybody I know before I die that they need to go help that woman spread the word, Suisilence. Now, before you know it, he's got a tire cover on his Jeep that says Stop Suisilence. He's printed business cards. He put Stop Suisilence around the tattoo on his arm.
Oh.
Tattooed it in. And I just thought, okay, I'm doing the right thing. So we have a lot of little stories like that. And when we were doing his bucket list, we took him to the beach. And there was like probably 50 people there. And he stopped everything, looked at everybody as he was literally being held up over the ocean so he could feel the water on his feet, to tell everybody that they needed to talk about it. And it, a couple of our band members went over and sang to him while he was in his final days and stuff like that. It's little stuff. Sometimes it's big. We try to do a lot of big stuff. I don't know if that answers your question, but these are such important moments, and everybody can have them and you're going to see what's important about being part of a community and helping. You want to help a service member? You better start focusing on the leading cause of death in the military. It is suicide. 30,000 people have died by suicide in the military since 9/11 compared to 7,000 in combat.
That's so telling. I saw that in your video, and you did answer the question beautifully. And I know that people listening are going to take it to heart. And I'm fighting back tears here myself. Thank you so much.
My God. No, they're sleeping. But yeah, and how did I get involved? I don't know if you guys remember when Robin Williams died by suicide. And by the way, you'll hear that I'm not saying commit. I'm leaving that word out because you will never be able to convince me that anybody's 100% committed to suicide. So die by suicide. Robin Williams, Anthony Bourdain, Kate Spade. There was this Chester Bennington. Chris Cornell died, and a month later, Chester died. It was his best friend. What happened? Chester said, well, you know what? Chris was right. I'm going to do the same thing. I mean, contagion. It's contagion. And so I looked at a friend of mine who is best friends with Chester. I was with him when he got the news that Chester had hung himself or died. I'm not actually, Robin hung himself. I'm not sure what means the other two passed by. But I said, we need to do a concert. We need to raise awareness. And we were involved in veterans' mental health issues at the time. And I'll never forget, I was trying to get Oakley to do it, but they were just in the middle of a buyout. And the chairman of that foundation said, here's a check, go do the concert. Entertain, engage, and educate is what you're talking about. Had been an executive at Pepsi. He knew. He was a marketing guy. He's really impressive. He was on our board for a while. You go do that concert. And we did it. That was in August. And we had the event like within 2 months. And that raised a significant amount of money and got a couple hundred people to show up and created a board and kept building on from there. And yeah, that's how it rolls. Just got to do it. You know, I want to encourage everybody. I mean, my partnership, Angel Force partnership with Warrior Gamer Foundation, has been nothing short of kismet. Every Monday we have great meetings and plenty in between, and we're just growing our partnership. It's like that's the contagion you want, you know, and people just coming on board. I think we might even be doing a flag football tournament during the summit too, while the gamer tournament's going on. May or may not be able to do a golf tournament, but I'll tell you what, there's going to be a lot of family created after that weekend. So I hope you guys can join us. We should do a podcast from there.
Absolutely.
That'd be awesome.
We should, and get all kinds of people involved in it. The stories are amazing, especially amongst the survivors. And we've done a lot of work with the Gold Star moms, the suicide moms. They got letters from their kids. I mean, their lives have been decimated by this, but they're surviving themselves, right? The moms are, and the dads. And you got to be there for that. Got to be there for that. Fort Belvoir is a soldier recovery unit in Virginia. 50,000 people on that campus who are somehow related to behavioral health issues in the military. I will be praying every moment of every hour of every day that I'm there, and be grateful that we're there to make that difference. They have welcomed us with open arms, and I cannot begin to express my appreciation for that partnership. And with Warrior Gamers, I can drive a mean car, apparently. I didn't know that. Yeah. So.
All right, Bilal, got anything before she wraps it up?
I mean, if we're not taking too much of your time, I understand.
No, I roll now.
You see, the fire has been lit.
Yeah.
Right? So there's no stopping it now. But it's really something I wanted to mention is that I really like how multiple times over you've mentioned the importance of community. And it's interesting because no matter where we are, where we're from, you know, what our beliefs are, at the end of the day, we're human beings and all of us are social creatures. It's not within our nature to be isolated. And yet, suicide is one of the most isolated things there could be. And you have mentioned so many times how, despite the fact that it is as isolated as it is, its effects are communal. And so this is a really interesting thing, how, you know, the further you push yourselves away, the more you hurt those around you.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite of what we need to do as humans. And yet, because stress is so high and so not talked about and so destructive, we go towards that unnatural route, it seems. And in that moment, it becomes natural for them, such that that becomes their default, such that the idea, the suicidality, becomes their default. I guess with that said, how how does one, as a community, be able to help somebody transform their mentality such that suicidality does not become the norm in their eyes? Because once something is normal, it's hard to break away from.
Well, okay, now we're going to describe normal, and I don't know anybody in the history of the world who's been able to really, define it.
Yeah.
Um, because it's talked about more, it will feel like it's more normal. But in fact, what you're doing is actually just destigmatizing something. And it isn't as sexy anymore. It's like, oh, you think that's a novel approach to solving a problem? It isn't. It actually, one of the things I want you guys to just think about. What I said was one suicide changes 135 lives. I'm going to give that more clarity. That's in that moment. Who is your community at the time of your suicide? Now I'm going to add a couple more factors. What about generationally? What about the next generation? What have I passed on to my children about self-worth
Yeah.
and self-confidence, self-valuation abilities? Now I'm going to say something else. What about all the people? My father never died by suicide. So, what's the number of people impacted by one person who's at risk? And all that behavior over a lifetime of alcoholism or drug abuse or anger and frustration and, self-violence or, God forbid, abuse of other people. Um, all those things, broken marriages, failed businesses, fellow business people, employees, and the list goes on. It's not 135. For every person who is ideating and or has died by suicide, how many lives have been impacted? My guess is over one or two generations, it could hit some pretty high numbers. And then you start talking about, okay, how many people on this phone call, and I want to see a little pan of everybody, has had exposure to somebody who's at risk or has died by suicide?
Yeah, lots.
Yep.
You gonna raise your hand? Okay, 4 out of 4, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that's more what it means. And it's out of 8 out of 10, maybe, but it's a social pandemic. It's definitely here. It's here to stay. But I can also tell you that by this, it's if you are ideating, give yourself a minute, pick up the phone and call somebody. If you know somebody who's ideating and you're not doing anything right at that moment, go ahead and call your buddy. Pick up the phone and call them. If you are ideating, take the phone call. And if somebody is extending some love to you, accept it for a minute. You might like it. It might actually help. How do I know? Couldn't accept it. You know, it's hard to accept when you don't feel confident and you don't feel like you have any self-worth. You don't respect people who want to love you. You want to love me? You're an idiot. That's what's going on in their heads. And so, take a second look at that person who's behaving like a jerk. There might be a good reason. And I wish I had extended that courtesy and love to my dad instead of just saying, "Oh my God, what he's such an asshole." Um, so be that person, be that one. Take that 1 minute, talk to that one person, um, take that one chance that being human might work.
Love that. That's so I'm in higher ed and I've had two students die by suicide and
Oh,
figuring out what you do afterwards with all the rest of the students has been, we did a suicide awareness tree, we lit lanterns, we did all of the things that I've seen in your videos to bring community together. And I think that you again I can't celebrate what you're doing enough. It's so important. And I think what your process of just extending a hand, just saying, even both of my students, you would have never known they were even ideating. Bright smiles, good grades. No, but to this day, their parents don't know what happened.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's a mystery, but it's one that we can unwind. And we're never going to be perfect, but I'd sure like to try. 1 in 135, let's get to 0.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the interesting things that happened in society was in Micronesia, where I don't know if folks have already heard this, but suicide was not even there wasn't even a word for it. And then in the 70s, like Western influences came in, and a couple kids heard about it. One kid did it, and then it just spread by the hundreds, and it was a national emergency there. And the interesting thing was that it was a cultural and community style contagion. It's called the Werther effect. I looked it up while you were talking, and that this is in Micronesia where that thing got coined, and in Greenland and some other places, and they had to solve it through community as well. So a community problem solved by community outreach and just talking about it, getting it out in the open. And that study, you are justified in everything that you said. And so people watching, you got to just like demystify it. You've got to just bring it out in the open. It's just a thing, and you got to talk through it and do the interventions. And I have done it. I have been on the phone with multiple people who are screaming and cursing at me, and like I was a horrible person, and I was just like, they need to just talk, and they're still around. So you're 100%.
Just throw this out to everybody. Community is not a zip code.
Yeah. Right. It's who cares, right? It's who cares about you and who you care about, and could be a total stranger too sometimes. So yeah, that's great.
And those are very blessed moments, by the way, when it is a stranger. That's where somebody's saying, hey, we're going to drop this experience on you. You need it and they need it. That's a two-way street.
Yeah.
That's appreciated during this journey.
And your events are amazing. I know I organized one come and paint event for our students, and a few weeks later I got a call a call and a text saying, that event saved my life, April. I was gonna do it, and just being around all my other friends and just painting together, it was the simplest thing ever, and I was so tired I almost didn't do it. But sometimes those simple things are just what people need, just to quietly paint next to each other. Just
yeah. Equine therapy is interesting to watch people. The horse and the vets go back and forth, and the dog therapies and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, yeah. It's an important world. It reminds us what it means to be human and what we need to do to keep our heart pumping and be relevant in a way we don't think about. Being relevant when it comes to other people is maybe not a worthless exercise, and you just see how worthy it is when you can pull somebody back from that feeling, so
100%. Well, this has been awesome. We appreciate your time,
thanks.
and we know that you're a very busy gal, and you are doing. She's very humble, people. Okay, she is a rock star. She's got a lot going on, saving the world, one community at a time, and on multiple different fronts. And we are honored and blessed to have you share your time, your expertise, your wisdom, and your perspective with us.
Thank you, buddy. And I would love to do it again. I can't wait to meet you out at the summit, and we get you into that. Well, let's do the broadcast from the summit.
Yeah, that would be great.
So much fun. Thank you so very much. Like you said, how you feel is everything. That's it. How you feel, and you made us feel great today. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, you probably make people feel great every day. That's not... All right, gang.
Yes, ma'am. Have a good night.
Thank
We're Your
you.
Gamer Headquarters podcast. Out.